Chapter 26 of The House on the Downs by Gladys Edson Locke. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. All's well. Sir Quenton Rotherdene, sitting by the window in a first-class compartment on the London-Brighton Express, looked out at the flying landscape of rich meadowland and green rolling hills, and felt both happy and saddened to be once more in the Sussex Downs after his absence of over a year on the Continent. Neither time nor travel had sufficed to banish the shadow of tragedy that had hung over him for so long, and he was lonely for the Downs he had grown up amongst, lonely, too, for the companionship of someone who would be more than mere friend or acquaintance. Would he find Pheasantily changed after all these months? Her letters breathed always warm and loyal affection, but lately he fancied that he could read between the lines an undernote of restiveness. Gypsy wanderlust, no doubt. What if she, like Rodney Sherard, should succumb to the call of the free, untrammeled life of her people, and return forever to the Romany folk? Having lost Eve and Rodney, he could not lose Pheasanta, too. It was the fear of this that had hastened his homecoming. Oh, he had failed miserably with the boy, failed and distrusted him at the crisis when Rodney had needed him most. Why had he blamed the boy so bitterly for his infatuation for Eve? Hadn't he, knowing full well Eve's power to charm, encouraged their intimacy and deliberately closed his eyes to its possible effect upon the ardent natured gypsy? Whose fault but his own, that Rodney, who had within him the makings of a musician, should have flung all ambition to the winds and turned his back for all time on gorgios and their ways? But he must not fail with Pheasanta. He needed her. God, how he needed her sympathetic understanding and devotion. Well, he was glad that Mark, dear old chap, was happy at last. Irene Grayle was a splendid woman. Those two would not again make a muddle of their joint life. A fine couple, and deserving of all happiness. He must take Pheasanta to the opening performance of Mark's first play, in which Irene had the stellar role. That would be in a month's time at the new Olympic Theatre in Leicester Square, Irene's London debut. He wished them both, all the success in the world. As the train roared through Downland, flashing in and out of the black-walled tunnels, which too frequently blotted out the lovely country, Sir Quentin's thoughts turned for a dark moment to that wretched homicide, Theophilus Elphick, dragging out his days in an asylum for criminal lunatics. The baronet wondered unhappily if the Grange could ever seem like home to him again, with such memories about it. Perhaps Pheasanta, however, if the Romany call did not prove too strong, could bring him contentment. The train steamed into the station at Brighton. Alwyn met him with the motor car. The brothers gripped hands. For a second, neither could speak for emotion. "Welcome home," Alwyn said at length, huskily. "We've missed you no end, old man, Pheasanta and I." "It is good to see you," Sir Quentin declared, and wrung his brother's hand again. "How is Pheasanta? I rather thought she'd come with you." "Oh, Pheasanta's well enough, but she has roaming spells rather often. She's up on the Downs now. Had a notion you and I would prefer to be alone at first, and I couldn't talk her out of it." "You don't think there's any danger of her leaving us some day, as Rodney did?" the baronet queried anxiously. "I think this," said Alwyn bluntly. "Pheasanta is not happy with you gone. She's a good bit of gypsy yet. And if you want her to stay on the Grange, you'll have to stay too." "I have come back to stay," Sir Quentin answered. The motor car was speeding along the picturesque Sussex lanes. On all sides rose the Downs, rolling height beyond height, and the wind clouds blew across them, deepening the shadows in the steep hollows and beech-clad combes. The baronet looked toward a great gorse slope like golden light across the miles. "Have you any idea in which direction Pheasanta went?" "Toward Lewes," Alwyn responded. "I saw her when she set out, had some red poppies stuck in her hair, gypsy fashion." Sir Quentin moved uneasily. "I'd rather like a walk on the Downs myself. I'm cramped from sitting in the train. Do you mind if I get out here, old boy? I might catch up with Pheasanta. Give her a bit of surprise, you know." The younger Rotherdene gave him a sharp look. "You might do worse," he said cryptically. Sir Quentin went up a long, steep slope where the uncropped grass was knee-deep and thickly sown with tiny bright flowers. He knew a favorite haunt of Pheasanta's, a heather-grown patch under the crest of the higher down beyond, and there he found her where the gorse bushes mingled with the heath bells and the tussocky grass. She was looking down over the curving chain of lower hills, over valley and pasture land, to the blue-gold mists of the distant Weald. She wore no hat, and red poppies, as Alwyn had said, were twisted in the black plaits of her hair. A string of beads, matching the poppies in color, hung about her neck, and served as the only adornment to her simple white frock. Her skin had a golden, sunburnt tint, her eyes a soft, glad radiance, as she turned them upon him. The baronet thought he had never seen her so beautiful. He gripped her hand in both of his. "Well, Miss Fazentelli, why didn't you come to meet me?" She smiled as only a Romany can. "Perhaps I wanted to see if you cared enough for your gypsy ward to come out on the downs after her." The baronet, gazing at Fazenda as she stood there before him, dark-eyed, red-lipped, vivid with youth and strength, awoke to a sudden realization of the one thing that could bring him happiness. At the same time he felt himself middle-aged, ineffectual. "Perhaps I care more than you think, dear girl," his voice unsteady with emotion. "More than an old fogey like me ought to allow himself to care." The blood rose slowly over Fazenta's face. Her glance wavered before his. "You have been wonderfully kind to me all these years," she faltered. "Kind?" he echoed sharply. "I am not talking of kindness, Fazenda. You have been the light of my home and my heart ever since you came to me, a little black-eyed wildling. You have grown dearer with each passing year, but I have been blind to my own sentiments toward you. Oh, I shall not blame you if you laugh at me for an old fool. I love you, Fazenda, not as my former ward, but as the woman I want for my wife." "Ah, no," she cried in a tone of agony. "You must not say such things to me." He fell back a step. "You love someone else?" She raised her eyes then, brilliant with unshed tears. "I could never love anyone except you, dear guardian that was, but I cannot be your wife." He took her gently by the shoulders. There was great joy in his face. "If you love me, Fazenda, you will be my wife." "I think I have always loved you," she said simply, "but you must see for yourself. I cannot be your wife." "I do not see, Fazenda." She tried to free herself. "You come of a fine old family," she pointed out, "of proud and noble lineage. I am just a gypsy, with a veneer of civilization." "You are the woman I love," he declared, "the woman who will be my wife." "It is impossible," she said firmly. "I love you too well to shame you with a gypsy wife. I will be anything else to you, anything you wish." "You will be my wife, or a stranger to me, Fazenda. Remember, you would not be the first Rotherdene born of the Romany folk. As you know, my great-great-grandmother was a gypsy, one of the Stanleys. Ah, dear girl, can't you see that I need you, that I cannot be happy without you?" That appeal moved her as nothing else had, but still she voiced a protest. "I haven't subdued the Romany wanderlust yet. You would not want a wife who might at any time go roaming over the downs, gypsy-like?" "You would be as free to roam as you always have been," he answered her tenderly. "And if I found myself missing you too badly, why, I'd come in search of you, as I've done today. Fazenda, give me the happiness I want." She suffered him to draw her into his arms. "For your dear sake," she vowed, "I shall try to conquer the gypsy in me and make myself a Rani, a true lady." The End. End of Chapter 26. End of The House on the Downs by Gladys Edson Locke.